Thorny, as we venture into the R&R, two truths are consistent. We love our dear Montana state, and we love great beer. And you know who else feels the same? Jeremiah Johnson Brewing. Brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls, Jeremiah Johnson takes Montana's finest ingredients to craft some of Montana's favorite beers. And now, Jeremiah Johnson's second tap room is open in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Their Citra IPA is probably one of my favorites. But we all know, Thorny, you're not the hop lover I am. You're more of a mountain man Scotch ale.
Well, Foley, I'm certainly not a mountain man, but you are right. I do love their Mountain Man Scotch Ale. But come game day, you and I are both cracking their Golden Bobcat Pale Ale. So when you're looking for a quality craft beer brewed with Montana roots, a relaxing tap room, or just a six-pack to take to your favorite Bobcat tailgate, Jeremiah Johnson delivers. Make your next beer a Jeremiah Johnson, and as always, go Cats.
I don't know what I say anymore. Welcome back, Bobcat fans.
There it is. A little rusty.
Oh my gosh. I'm like I'm mixing the intro and our lead.
You haven't like read the lead in like 2 years.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's crazy. Oh, okay. Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy. Welcome back, Bobcat fans. Well, thanks for joining us. We are always happy to have you listening to our podcast. We are the Ryans of the R&R Catcast. We are sponsored by Jeremiah Johnson Brewing, brewed in Great Falls, Montana, with a second tap room over in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Thorny, you know what I heard today? Jeremiah Johnson's delivering beers or distributing beers in 10 states.
Are they doing it out in Western Washington yet?
They probably are.
I should email Jeremiah and ask him that.
Yeah,
might be here.
Jeremiah's he's a mover and shaker, and it's been fun doing business with him, and we're happy to support them because they make great beer. They're from Great Falls. You and I have Great Falls ties, and they just it's a solid connection with Montana State as well.
Go Bison!
Nice, I like it. All right, Thorny. Well, we are actually doing a podcast on Montana State football. Go figure.
How long has that really been of any importance? I guess the fall brawl, really. I mean, I guess we done like coaching stuff, but actual like football, like watched some football and talked about some football, fall brawl. And before that, NDSU.
It's really the main reason why we started the R&R Catcast. And so it's going to be fun to talk some football again. We have a lineup of things we're going to go over right now. First, we'll talk about what we're drinking. Then we're going to get right into the scrimmage recap that happened on Saturday. That's the Sonny Holland scrimmage. It happens every spring. We're going to talk about two things we liked from just in general on spring thoughts. We'll take a look at the depth chart that was released earlier this week. We might get to our thoughts on Brent Vigen just after our initial thoughts of what we're seeing so far. We have Golden Coolie questions from the Bobcat Nation and one from our Twitter handle. And then I have some buy or sell to book in the episode tonight. That's a lot.
Sounds good to me, though. Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm just, like you said, I'm excited to actually sit down and talk some football and just to see where it goes. It'll be a fun episode.
Right on. Well, let's get right into what we are drinking tonight. How about you go first?
I have the Boundary Bay Scotch Ale. Boundary Bay out of Bellingham, Washington. It's one of my favorite scotches I've found out in Washington, a IPA state who does a few other beers sometimes, but this is actually a pretty good one. It's in a big bottle, 1 pint, 6 fluid ounces. So it's a big one, but it's a really good one. 6.4% alcohol, 31 IBUs. Good stuff from Boundary Bay over in Bellingham.
Is that what they call a bomber?
I don't even know what you're saying to me right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, Bomber beers. I think those are the big bottles.
Oh, okay. That was the size. Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. You're the one that introduced me to crawlers. So
Crowlers. There it is.
I hadn't heard anything of that before. So, and I've actually bought one a couple times. But yeah, I don't know much about beer sizes. Mixing pints and ounces together, though. That's fun.
Okay, so I'm drinking. What am I drinking? I'm drinking a City of Dreams from Fort George Pale Ale. It's a hazy pale ale, 5.5%. Fort George is out of Astoria, Oregon. I'm holding it up to the screen, Thorny. I know we're doing a little bit of video action right now. Has this nice coastal kind of aquatic scene. I think I've had this on before. It's one of my favorite beers that I've had in the last couple of years. So one of my buddies brought it over for running group on Friday, left a 6-pack with me, had a couple left over. It was awesome. So cheers.
They make hazies in things besides IPAs?
Pale ales. Yeah.
Yeah. That was just an IPA thing. I don't know if I've ever had a hazy. So,
well, Mac and Jack's, right? Mac and Jack's African Amber is completely hazy. It's like an unfiltered amber.
Did not know that. See, things I don't know. I just thought it was an amber.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, we each talked about our beer. I don't know if you said in your outline, are we going to talk about the news here?
What news is that?
Well, we have a couple of transfers as of yesterday. So I thought we would start off with that. Tyrone Marshall, the 6'1", 206-pound junior wide receiver, has entered the transfer portal and has Tyler Bohannon, a 6'1", 186-pound redshirt freshman cornerback. These are the first transfers since Vigen became head coach. I believe Greg Filer transferred basically right after we canceled fall ball, right? I think he transferred before Choate left, I think. Now my memory's all
or right after, I think.
Maybe it was right after, but okay. So at most it's 3, but spring ball just concluded. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these guys, but I also want to ask you after we're done, you think there's going to be more players who transfer, but first your thoughts on just Tyrone Marshall and Tyler Bohannon transferring. How do you think that impacts the depth chart and the depth moving into fall?
Well, first I'll talk about Tyler Bohannon. I don't know much about the kid. We have a couple defensive backs. He's a redshirt freshman. So I don't really have any thoughts on that. Yeah. Tyrone Marshall, most notably, came on late in the 2019 season. I think games against Southern Utah, UNC, and notably against the Grizz. We used him on the fly sweep pretty much exclusively. And so people will remember his name because he scored a touchdown against Montana. But during the scrimmage, when I saw Elijah Elliott take the fly sweep, it erased any memory of my mind of Tyrone Marshall. And so I don't think I'm going to miss Tyrone Marshall all that much. I appreciate him. I appreciate what he did for us when we were using that fly sweep in 2019. I mean, it was pretty much unstoppable when he ran that. And so I wish him luck, I suppose.
Yeah, I wish him luck too. I think Tyrone Marshall is the bigger impact of the two. I mean, Tyler Bohannon had not yet contributed. It makes our depth in the secondary a lot thinner. I think he was a guy that Choate and staff were high on, and maybe that's why he is heading out, because maybe he's not meshing with Vigen and staff, or maybe he was just a Choate guy. You never know these things. I'm not going to speculate on why a guy's leaving. But yeah, Marshall was a guy who redshirted last year, played 4 games, and looked really good on the fly sweep. Didn't get a whole lot of action at wide receiver in terms of like catching passes downfield, but he was extremely fluid, and he's one of those guys that just didn't even look like he was trying. One of those guys who just easily glided and could outrun everybody, and he was fast, and I was excited to see him get a little bit more opportunity this year, so that one kind of is a bummer, but, good luck to Tyrone wherever he ends up landing, and, we'll carry on.
Well, the Sonny Holland scrimmage, I don't know if did we do it with Choate? Choate hated spring ball. So if it was a scrimmage, it was more like for him, like a practice where they would do like individual drills. And then I remember it was kind of a dog and pony show where we would like bring people in from the crowd and do like throwing competitions and stupid stuff like that.
I don't remember any of that, but I know that he was the one who kind of ended the Great Falls Triangle Classic thing. So I don't know what happened with that, but yeah, he was not a fan of, I don't think, spring scrimmages at all in any way.
Well, that is a big difference with this regime. I know when Coach Vigen took the helm, he was really into, emphasizing spring ball. And so we knew that was going to be different. Tried to keep the pulse. You and I tried to keep as much of a pulse on spring ball as we could, being two dudes out here in Washington.
2 states
right?
away. Man, it does make it challenging. And this is something I think is worth noting. Number one, like we like to say this every few episodes, especially if you haven't listened to us before, we're just fans. We're not media in any way, shape, or form. But number two, we don't even live in Bozeman, let alone Montana. So most of the stuff that we can only really feel good about talking about, at least me personally, is stuff we see with our own eyes. So a lot of like the practices, all that's, we're just like basically we try and listen to as much people talk, consume as much media and all these things. We like to think we're good at that, but I mean, that's really all it is though. So we can't speak to that, but now this is why it's exciting to talk about the scrimmage, because we were able to actually watch it.
Yeah. And we are not well connected either. So
no,
Brian and I do not have ends. We don't have special information.
We're not quarterback club members. We're just two regular fans just sitting there loving Bobcat football. So anyway,
well,
let's carry on.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
It was excited to see it come on. Both you and I got to watch on Pluto TV. I think in Montana it was on SWX. Out here in Washington, it was not on SWX. Regardless, we were afforded that opportunity. And for once, it looked like it was a nice day in Bozeman. At least the wind was not howling. It might have been overcast, but by all accounts, it looked like a decent day out.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything from the broadcasters talking about the weather. So it must have been pretty good.
The format for the scrimmage, I believe, was 4 quarters. Yes. Blue versus gold, and I think this quarters were either 6 or 8 minutes long. They were definitely short.
Yeah, I want to say 8. And I know that the broadcasters were talking about in the second half they'd go to a running clock, but they actually never did. I think they just wanted to get more plays in, actually. So I think it was just a standard business-like actual game situation scrimmage, completely opposite of, like you said, what Choate would run even when he did the scrimmages. It was more like situational stuff. This was straight up kicking off, punting, everything.
Yeah. Well, the very first thing to note about the scrimmage, outside of just the topical stuff we just said, is how many players were not playing in the scrimmage.
Yeah.
I mean, take a look right here.
Yeah.
Thorny, just this whole ledger right here on the right side are players who did not participate in the scrimmage.
Why don't you read some headliners? You don't have to read them all.
Well, I'll just go through them.
Why not?
Cornerback Devin Davis, defensive tackle Trey Yates, defensive tackle Byron Rollins, defensive end Kyle Finch, linebacker Tatum Gilman, linebacker Tavian Williams, or which he is not a linebacker. I think he's a wide receiver, actually. Wide receiver Tanner Trafton, Justice Perkins, he's a center. Jared Kessler, tight end. Minaya Olivio, running back. We did not see.
We're going to learn that one sometime. I have a hard time with that one.
Yeah. And then the headliners, Troy Anderson, Amondre Williams, Chase Benson, Tyrell Thomas did play. He was listed as not participating. He did play. We did not see Talcata, Tyson Regenball, Casey Bauman, Rylan or TJ Sessions, Callahan O'Reilly, or Jacob Kettles. I mean, I just listed probably 20 some players that didn't even step on the field. Most of those guys are some of our top defensive players. And so, I mean, that's a big deficit on the defensive side of the ball.
It was a good opportunity for young guys to get some game type reps because, man, we were missing many starters, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which very much skews things and kind of just changes your perception when you think about all the guys that are missing.
Our offensive line was starting though, and they performed like great against the defensive line, which is pretty thin right now, especially with a lot of guys out for sure.
So let's start on offensive line. Might as well. That's a good place to talk. What do you think about the shuffling that Vigen and staff have done, where they have Cole Sane, the ex-Montana Grizzly and JC transfer, at center? They had Taylor Tuiasosopo at right guard and Lewis Kidd at right tackle, and Zach Redd moved from center to left guard, and Connor Wood slipped in at the left tackle spot. So what do you think of just the shuffling now that you've actually seen it in action? It's kind of hard because the Cats didn't really show you what they're going to do necessarily. So it's easy to say like it worked, but that's not really the full playbook. But just your overall quick impressions on the offensive line that shuffle and how they performed at the scrimmage.
Well, to be straight up honest, Ryan, I don't know much about the offensive line. I remember listening to Coulter's show, and he's like, he had some big reservations going into it. Like, why would you mess with it? I mean, we have probably the best offensive line in the Big Sky, so why reshuffle? And then I listened to his recap show on Monday, and he said it made sense to him. So I'm going to give Coulter the benefit of doubt. They probably looked fine. Schematically, I'm not exactly sure why they're doing that. Maybe it's because they're projecting some guys in the NFL, like maybe kids better at tackle than guard. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about how to say the shuffle went or how the reasons behind it, but all I can say is they looked good in the scrimmage. I thought they were absolutely demolishing the second and third string defensive lines. Like, who are we kidding? That's basically what they're doing. The only thing I really saw was actually Kidd lost a couple battles against Daniel Hardy. He got around Kidd a couple times, which is, I think, really impressive for Daniel Hardy, because I think Kidd's going to be a very good tackle. I mean, it might take him a little bit of time to adjust to it, but man, if you got a defensive end who can get around him, that's exciting. But overall, I thought the offensive line was really solid. I didn't see any bad snaps. They were just pushing the defensive line off the ball every single time. Guys weren't getting off the blocks. They looked really, really good. And I think it's pretty obvious that the Bobcats are still going to be able to run the football pretty well with that offensive line.
Well, it's good news for us. Bad news for the Big Sky.
Did you happen to pay attention to their pass blocking? Did you see anything there that concerned you?
Nope. Nothing. I mean, nothing really. Like, it was very like when I watched the scrimmage, Ryan, you and I, this is like totally us, because we are exactly just fans. Like, we don't have the football eye to discern like, oh my gosh, yeah, the way they're setting up right there, that's good. That's an improvement from what I saw last year. Unless it's obvious to me, I'm not catching that. So our passing wasn't great during the scrimmage until we actually got to our third and fourth strings, like the guy like Blake Thielen out of Great Falls and Tommy Mellott. Tucker Rovig hit some nice passes in the second half, but I mean, first half, let's just be honest, we tried a couple passes early. I mean, McKay flashed his strong arm. Well, one went off the tips of McCutcheon on outstretch, but then we just handed off the ball to Fonse, which was surprising. I saw Fonse. I was like, why are we running to Fonse in this? And he got a lot of work, even into the second half. So that seemed a little bit odd to me. So hey, Thorny, let me ask you something real quick. Yeah. So to build off that point, I know why you're laughing, because I left you just kind of high and dry. Like, okay, great.
You went all the way from talking about the offensive line to how many carries Afonso got all in like one stretch there.
Look how I did that, right?
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So to me, the biggest thing that impressed in the scrimmage was our running backs. Afonso had like 140, 150 yards by the end of the whole thing, which to me, again, I thought was stupid. Like, why are we playing Afonso so much? I love watching Demarius Hosey run. Like, when that guy gets the ball, he's just a different speed than anybody on the team. Maybe Elijah Elliott. I know Elijah Elliott, we'll talk about him in a little bit. But man, I love me some Demarius Hosey. The guy is just a burner.
Man, I agree about Hosey, but man, the guy who just jumped out at me was Elijah Elliott. Like, I didn't realize he was that fast. We watched him in the fall brawl, and it just seems like he stepped it up another notch. And I think that's why he earned himself the number 2 running back spot on the depth chart, which we'll talk about later. But he just jumped out at me. He runs a lot harder than his size would maybe indicate that he would. And I know Brent Vigen's talked about that Fonse is kind of a complete back, can do it all, but Elijah Elliott can run between the tackles better than you think he can, just because he's bigger than you think he is, but he's also just tougher. So he really impressed me, and that was one of my guys I had marked as just standouts from the scrimmage. But man, what a good problem to have. You're talking about our running backs. Lane Sumner broke a huge run, and it was called back for, I don't know why it was called back. It must have been a hold, but you never know the scrimmages too. I feel like sometimes Coach Vigen will come over there and be like, call a hold on him. Like, was there an actual hold? I think that kind of stuff happens in scrimmages because he wants to see how the offense responds after a big play, kind of thing. But Sumner is a super capable back. So you got Isaiah Nfonse, you got Demarius Hosey, you got Elijah Elliott, you got Jahari Martin, you got Lane Sumner. Those are an extremely talented group of running backs. And I think that's probably the best running back group in the entire Big Sky, if not the whole country.
Jimmy Beal's got a really good problem on his hands.
Yeah.
That room is deep. You know who else is there's a couple other running backs that you didn't even list. Like a guy there's a recruit I was high on when we first got him, Cole Oster.
Mm-hmm.
Remember him?
Yeah, he was
pretty be great, right? A big nickel, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's getting buried down in the running backs room. So there's
also
guys.
Joe Olson from Bozeman who did he break his leg his senior year in high school? He had a pretty nasty injury. I think it was a broken leg. Yeah. So he's probably still recovering from that. And I was excited when we signed him because he was just smashing people at Bozeman High. And it's insane. You want to talk about who might transfer? You would imagine the running back room would be prime spot number one because there's just not enough carries to go around for that many studs.
What'd you think of Jahari Martin?
So that's actually one question I had to ask you was, do you think it was a good move to have Jahari Martin at running back? And if you watch him run, I want to say absolutely yes. I think he looks talented. He jumped over a dude. He's plowing through dudes. I think he's more capable than just being just a short yardage back. I think he can be a change of pace back where you have either the fast guys like Afonso and Elliott, and then you come in with Martin, and it doesn't necessarily be a short yardage situation, but in terms of where he might be needed, the linebacker room might be more of a need. So it's hard for me to say if it was the right move, but I thought he looked really good at running back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this coaching staff wants to do with Jahari.
He trucked people.
It really he did. He really did. And he straight up hurdled that poor guy. The guy had, I was looking at his tackling form. I do know a little bit about tackling form. Come on. And the guy's head was down and he was just trying to do the old cradle. Jahari just did a 110 meter hurdle right over him.
Yep.
Posterized him.
Yeah. I don't remember who that was, but that's not good.
Funny.
You got hurled by a 5'11", 235 pound guy who, by all accounts, is not 5'11", but right. I've heard nothing but 5'10" and generous with Jahari Martin.
Is Jahari Martin's comp CJ Palmer?
I think Martin is actually a bigger load than Palmer. He's not as tall, but I think he's more compact, and I think he's going to truck people more than Palmer did. But that's probably the best comp you can think of if you're trying to compare him to a past Bobcat running back that Bobcat fans might recognize. I think CJ Palmer would be the one you think of.
I like the idea of being short yardage. Let's say we're on the 2 and it's third down and we need to score. Put RJ Fitzgerald in the hole with Jahari right behind him. That's 7 all day, baby.
And I was thinking more along the lines of, I know did you watch much of that Eastern Washington, North Dakota State playoff game here last weekend? Yeah. North Dakota State had this big white dude. It was 240 pounds. And he was just eating the Eastern Washington defensive alive. And I can imagine, can you imagine if we're physical and the whole drag him into deep water stuff that Choate still preached, that we're still doing that into the third and fourth quarter, and then Jahari Martin's running the ball against a defense that's gassed. He's just going to drag guys for 6 yards. He's going to get tackled. He's going to have guys drape on him 3 or 4 yards beyond the line of scrimmage and then take him for 10 more yards. It's going to be ugly. I love it.
It's going to be awesome.
But at that point, you're resting Afonso, you're resting Elliott, and then Jahari Martin's just killing people. So it's a good problem to have, man. I actually think he fits well in the running back room, and I actually think it was probably an overall good move, and I'm excited to see him actually get some live game action against some poor Big Sky cornerbacks and linebackers.
Okay. Thorny, what do you want to do with the rest of the scrimmage? Do you just want to talk about a couple of players that flashed, or did you want to go into some more positions?
Well, I mean, so I had some. I think we go kind of position by position, very brief. Some of them aren't worth diving into very much, but we got to talk about the quarterbacks. So let's talk about the quarterbacks.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with McKay?
Well, I don't know. That's just what we're going to talk about. So I guess who impressed you most? We're talking about the scrimmage now. We're not taking into the full spring stuff into account yet. Who impressed you most if you just take the scrimmage into an account?
Blake Thielen.
It's kind of hard to ignore it, right?
Yeah. He definitely has the best ball. I saw the best pass was not Blake Thielen. The best pass was Tucker Rovig to I think it was Jahad Monroe, or it might have been Nate Stewart.
It was Nate Stewart, the one on the kind of the sideline there, like the 5-10 yard line somewhere there. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a beautiful pass. But Blake Thielen was just, gosh, he's hard not to like, right? You're like, okay, here comes the pride of Great Falls. And you're like, all right. But he's just making plays. Yeah, he's just making plays. He had a pass to tight end, like a leak, like a boot leak for a tight end. That one, bravo! Glad we're passing to the tight ends, but it was a beautiful play. We took it to the house. I think it was Derek Snell.
It was Snell.
Yeah. I just like, I don't know, man. He's just got a strong arm. He's accurate. He can throw it. He can move. So I get it that he might not have the wheels. Like one time, let's say McKay broke the pocket and they called him. He had a yellow jersey on, so they called him down.
That was bogus. That was bogus. That guy would not have tackled him.
I was like, oh, there's some wheels, because he put in, like, you know how Troy Anderson puts his foot in the ground and it just accelerates, and then you're like, oh, there goes Troy. There's a little bit of that in Matt McKay. When I saw that, I was like, ooh. So that was special.
It's like you slap Troy Anderson and Chris Murray together.
But it's hard not to love some Blake Thielen when you see him, and you're like, okay, he's going to be third, fourth string, and you're starting to think about, like, why. And granted, it's maybe the second or third string defense, but maybe in 2 years he sticks with the program, pays his dues. We're looking at a Montana born and raised quarterback leading the Bobcats. That's pretty cool.
I think you hit the nail on the head, is that he has the tools. And I think the development can be there, especially if Brent Vigen is the quarterback developer that we all hear and hope that he can be. But I think the hard part is going to be keeping Blake Thielen in Bozeman. I think you're almost going to have to choose between Blake Thielen and Tommy Mellott in terms of like who gets that scholarship. Blake's not a scholarship player, is he? I'm not entirely sure. He might be preferred walk-on, maybe might be partial, but at some point, man, you can't have Tucker Rovig, you can't have Casey Bauman, you can't have Matt McKay, Blake Thielen, and Tommy Mellott all on a scholarship hanging around. Like, someone's going to want to leave that room, you'd imagine. So I think the hard part is going to keep him around, but if you can, I think absolutely by the time he's a junior, he could be a solid Big Sky player. And I really like his game, and I'm hoping he sticks around, and I'm hoping that happens.
We did not get to see Casey Bauman, and all reports out of camp said Casey Bauman
past
is taken to Brent Vigen's tutelage and made a lot of strides. But Rovig, number 2 on the depth chart, right? Matt McKay came out as a QB1, and so here we are again, Montana State quarterback drama.
I liked what I saw from Rovig in the scrimmage. Like, I would be completely fine. I know you and I have been kind of like proponents of Rovig keeping his job. The interception he threw wasn't a great ball, but I think it's important to note that I think Rovig always kind of played in his own head, because Jeff Choate hated turnovers so damn much that if he threw a pick, Choate's just going to rip you apart on the sideline. The fact that he just felt confident and comfortable to throw that ball, even if he didn't put enough air under it, I think shows that Rovig could be just growing as a player. He's a captain this year. So, man, I actually liked what I saw from Rovig. Get some really good balls. His confidence, his decision-making looked a lot better than it had been, is going through his progressions. So maybe he hasn't passed McKay, but I think either way, if it's McKay or if it's Rovig, I think we're going to be much improved at the quarterback play next year, even though the scrimmage didn't really relay stats necessarily from McKay. I think either way, we're going to be much improved.
People love the Barry Rovig, and I don't get it. I don't get it.
It took us to the semifinals, and I know we don't need to go in that whole thing, but I think he's very much in the running to start in the fall.
Yeah, exactly.
That pretty much covers the offense. I do want to get back to the tight ends. We don't need to go through the tight ends because I think we have an extremely solid list. But man, how excited were you to see those passes that you in particular last year were just like, throw it to the tight ends on that drag route, do it. And then there was like, that happened like all day on Saturday.
Yeah, Cho was like adverse to getting 5 yards to 7 yards a pop on tight ends. I don't know why. Because like, God knows we needed it on third down a ton. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I mean, Ryan, and you know this more than anybody, that whole scrimmage was so vanilla. We probably had like 3-4 plays they ran with the options, like read pass options. So there you go.
Yeah, that's the hard part about McKay is with him in the gold jersey, it made it a lot harder to get a full read on him too. So, but yeah, the tight ends, Derek Snell, I think is going to be a stud in this conference. I liked what I saw of
Trayton Pickering.
Yeah, I was like, is it Lonergan or Pickering? Lonergan didn't play, did he? So it's Pickering. So yeah, I'm super excited about the tight ends. I think the offense is going to be really good. Based on everything I've seen, there's great talent at wide receiver who we haven't talked about yet. Jaden Smith, our guy Kevin Cass has told us he's going to break all sorts of MSU records, right? He looked all the part. He didn't get the ball thrown his way until the second half, and when he did, he looked amazing.
In my notes right there, Jaden Smith looks the part.
Yeah. He and then he is starting according to the depth chart, according to the post-spring depth chart, which means who knows, but the fact that he's starting, I think, says a lot, and I think he's going to be a great player. What did you think of Jaden Smith and overall the wide receiver room?
Well, Jaden Smith certainly stands out. I mean, if nothing else, physical attributes. When you look at the screen, you're like, who is that? Number 17, that's Jaden Smith. A couple of times, I mean, we haven't seen him. He caught like a touchdown against in the playoffs against somebody. I can't remember, but very limited action in 2019. He made a couple nice moves after catching the ball on Saturday, keeping in bounds. And so I'm pretty stoked about that guy. I mean, he's a huge target. Another wide receiver I really liked that I saw was Nate Stewart, the graduate transfer from, help me out there, Ryan. Where's Nate Stewart
Akron,
from?
the Zips.
Oh yeah, the Mac. Okay.
Maction. Wednesday night
so
Maction.
Those two guys stood out. It was good to see Willie Patterson catching some balls over, especially in the punt game.
If you don't know, Foley's a little critical of Willie P here and there.
I'm not the only one.
I know you're not. I'm just saying for context of what you just said is all.
But yeah, so I kind of thought Nate Stewart, I wrote down big, fast, kind of has that same body as Travis Johnson. Not quite Travis Johnson-esque, but he could be a comparable right there.
Yeah, what is he listed at here? Let me pull it up. 6'2", 197. Yeah, he's 200-pound wide receiver, plenty big. Yeah, he just looked like a physical wide receiver, and I think it's something we need here. So he looked good, man. I actually was surprised to see him not starting on the depth chart that was released, but I thought he looked great. And we're talking about like what you and I consume for other reports is nothing but good things about Nate Stewart all camp long too. So we'll see. He could fight his way into the starting spot, or at the very least get some time. I don't know if MSU is going to go into any four wide sets, but I imagine he'd be one of the guys in the fourth spot there.
If you're a Montana State receiver, you're in a good position right now. Just given what we know about the offense in Brent Vigen.
You're going to catch some balls finally. Yeah. You're not just going to block all day long. All right. Well, anything else about the offense, man?
Nope. I'm ready to move on to defense. Let's do it.
Because everything we just said kind of needs to be taken with a big grain of salt, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. More so with the defense, because how many starters were out on defense? Pretty much like half of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, anyone that looked good on offense, is it because they're that good, or is it because the defense is missing everybody?
Yeah.
In particular,
Exactly.
like Chase Benson and Troy Anderson are two guys that, like, right there totally changed the outcome of that game, of the scrimmage.
So I got two players that jumped out on defense. Daniel Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Hardy just looks stacked. Kyle looks just like scary.
Yeah.
Don't tackle me.
He's
like
got such
Daniel
a big
Hardy.
wingspan.
Oof.
He's a big man.
He took Kid. I watched a couple plays where he just took Kid and made Kid look funny. He just like Kid locked him up and he did like the little Olay swim
the
move
shoulder
on
down.
him.
But yeah, it was amazing. I saw those too.
The athleticism is just unmatched. Second person I liked watching in the scrimmage, Danny Yu. Danny Yu is going to be a player. Danny Yu is going to be a player. That guy's a dude.
I agree, man. He looked like he's getting his feet under him, but I think he's not going to probably play much this year, but I think he's going to be pushing for time next year for sure. He looked like a guy who's going to be, has a very high ceiling, and I liked a lot of his intangibles and his athleticism. Looks off the charts. Oh,
another guy, Miles Jackson.
Yeah.
Cornerback.
Man, I didn't know much about Miles Jackson. I was like,
me either.
He kept making plays. I'm like, who is my, like, checking the, like, my little printout, like, Miles Jackson. Who's that guy?
Miles Jackson.
Man, he looked good. He's the one who picked off Rovig, right?
Yeah.
And he was all over the field. Like, he looked good. He looked pretty big out there, like big enough to make some tackles in the Big Sky Conference. Like, a lot of cornerbacks are pretty diminutive, but he looked, pretty good sized out there. I think he's going to be a player, man.
I wrote down good size, good speed. I mean, he was matched up one-on-one with Jaden Smith a lot. So he was covering pretty much our top receiver. I was pretty stoked about that. Seeing him. You know who else had it? Was kind of just like everywhere, but you couldn't figure out who he was. Do you remember Jonathan Knight?
Yeah, so I kept seeing number 20 out there, and I looked down, and it's like Manaya Olivo. I'm like, no, that is definitely not him. But then I remember, Coulter talking about he had to switch numbers, and John Knight. I'm like, oh, John Knight, the converted. Yeah, he made some plays.
Quarterback. Yeah.
He needs to put on he needs to get a little meat on those bones, but he was making some plays out there. He looks like a dude who knows what he's doing back there.
Yeah. We got to see a lot of Jeffrey Manning as well. I mean, I don't think he made like any outstanding plays, but he was out there. He's going to be a starter for us.
One play that I was impressed with Manning, at least in terms of like getting to the spot. There was a play where it might have been the touchdown, Jahari Martin's touchdown. Manning came down in the box, planted his feet, was right where he needed to be, and then Martin just kind of trucked him and ran into the end zone. But I don't necessarily blame Manning for that because I think Jahari Martin's going to truck a lot of people. But the fact that he read it, he was in the right spot, and he made a good effort on it. And I just think he looked pretty good. I think he's going to be a solid player. It's going to be, it's going to be hard to replace guys that we had last year. We had such a strong safety group with JoJo Henderson, Braden Conkle, and Jacque Allen. It's going to be hard to replace them, but I'm hopeful that the combination of all the guys we have back there can get it done. And I think it's going to have to start with Manning and Ty Okada are going to be the two of the guys that are going to have to step up and really take over those roles.
Yeah, they have to have some like good synergy. They need to be good communicators back there, especially now from the depth chart. We see we're going to probably run a defense that has 5 cornerbacks or 5 defensive backs.
Yeah. So yeah. We're going to talk more about that, but yeah, you're right. Which I was a little bit surprised with how thin we're at cornerback. We just lost a cornerback to the transfer portal, and we're switching to a 4-2-5 with like 5 cornerbacks. It's like, does that spell out transfer for you from cornerback? We're going to have to bring someone in, or some guys are going to have to step up. Because if one guy goes down in that cornerback room, we're back. We're like a freshman back there.
Yeah, but the bigger need is on defensive line, and I think you would agree with that.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. There were some guys that have been highly touted recruits that played in this game and just didn't seem to splash to me. Did you feel that way, or
like who?
Well, Blake Schmidt was in quite a bit. I didn't see too much that like wowed me out of him. I saw Ben Seymour and Sebastian Valdez in there, and they both look like they're going to be dudes, but they didn't look like they're there yet. The guy who actually impressed me the most on the defensive line, I had to look it up, was number 89, Ethan Bullock. Did you see him in there?
No, I did not have him. I put Kyle Rigg as a guy that was kind of is he defensive lineman or is he a linebacker?
Yeah, no, he's defensive lineman. I think he's playing in the middle.
Yeah. I had a note that said no, he has a nose for just being around the ball. So he was active in my eye.
It's kind of hard.
Tua Retta too. Like Tua, I mean, you can't miss Tua. Tua's like, well, he's Tua.
I love that the reports on the Bobcat Nation are anywhere from like, oh, he lost weight down to 355. Like, no, he looks like he's up to 400. Like, that's such a that's a 45-pound swing, and no one knows what it is. But the fact that he's out there just being that light on his feet at that size is pretty amazing. So the thing with him, obviously, he's gonna have to stay in shape and keep it under control and be a good contributor. But overall, man, like I just thought that the defensive line just got blown off the ball so hard. It was hard to get a gauge on them, but that can be maybe that the offensive line is just that good. It's hard to know.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both.
I think we have a top 5 O-line in the entire country, no matter where you put them. So it's hard to know. And the fact that we kept the same O-line coach, they're going to be good. So it's hard to gauge. And but just I was hoping for more out of some of the guys, since so many starters were out. They had their chance to shine. I just think they did okay, and they're going to have to make some more strides if we're going to be a national championship caliber team. So that was definitely the biggest area of concern for me coming out of the scrimmage was defensive line, in particular the interior.
One guy that did not play that I have a question about, and you can answer this for me, Amandre Williams. Is he moving inside? No. Is he going to be a tackle?
So let's look at the depth chart. Huh? I don't have that up yet. Do you?
I do have the depth chart.
I think it's going to be Hardy and Amandre on the ends.
You're right. Amandre is on the end, and Daniel Hardy is on the end. Okay.
That is a solid group of defensive ends. The only thing I'm concerned about is you and I are talking about Hardy splashing, but he splashed on pass rushing. Can he be an every down back who's going to stuff the run too? I didn't see him make too many stops in the run game, but I didn't see too much of anybody make too many stops in the run game on defense.
Yeah, but he's just got to hold his gap, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's true. All right, Ryan. Hey, anything else on the defense that you wanted to know?
Let me take a look at my notes here, make sure I'm not missing anything.
Because I did want to talk a little bit about special teams.
Tyrell Thomas looks jacked. I wanted to say that. Did you see his guns, man? For being like 5'8", his arms are huge.
I love Tyrell Thomas.
He's been putting some work in. That guy is like one of my all-time favorite Bobcats. I mean,
yeah,
his freshman year alone, he's in Bobcat lore forever. If you don't know what we're talking about, the pass breakup in the final play for the Grizzlies by Gresh Jensen of all people, which is funny now with his trajectory, but making that pass breakup, doing like a somersault and just like sprinting as fast as he could, wide-eyed, because he's got those big eyes, just sprinting all the way back to the other side of the field. It's like he's a hero forever in Bobcat land. But yeah, he's been sticking around. He's had a solid career. And what did you think of his move to nickelback, actually? Let's talk about that real quick. Nickelback, typically you would think of as like a bigger guy, wouldn't you?
That is interesting. Well, we used to play nickel with Jalen Cole. Jalen Cole was honestly the smallest guy on the team.
He's smaller than Tyrell Thomas. True.
So as long as they can cover, I'm cool with that. Are we going to play a big nickel? Are we going to put Troy back there? I don't know. I'm confused what we're doing on defense right now. I know we have 4 down linemen. That's different. But the 4-2-5, I'm not exactly sure how that looks compared to what we were doing last year. It sounds to me, and Ryan, I might be completely wrong on this, but it kind of sounds to me like we took I thought it was going to be a 4-3-4 defense, and they're like, yeah, but maybe we had something good going on last year, so let's keep this kind of big nickel thing. I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't know, but that's kind of what it looks like to me.
Well, let's just transition to, do you want to chat about the depth chart real quick? Because that kind of lends to it. Because
are we gonna do? Okay, hold on. Let's put a cap on the scrimmage real quick. So let's do that. One thing I did want to talk about real quick is the special teams. I was super impressed with Bryce Layton. Bryce Layton continues to be as advertised.
He's amazing,
man. Yeah, we got him for 4 years. Another thing is Luke Pollock, who's kicking our extra points and field goals, solid all scrimmage long. So all of our kickers, Blake Gessner, Bryce Layton, Luke Pollock, all freshmen, and we're going to have them probably all for 4 years. So we're set.
How does MSU do this? Because didn't I research a stat that in the 2010 decade, the Bobcats only had three starting punters? It was Roy Perez. It was it Bolton for the first 2 years?
Tyler Bolton.
Trevor Bolton.
Trevor?
Sorry, Mr.
There was
Bolton.
a Tyler.
It wasn't our wide receiver. That's Bolton. And then, gosh, who was last year? This is embarrassing. I can't remember his name. Who punted last year?
He did such a good job.
He did such a good job. It's so good.
He won the Cat Grizz for us. What was his name?
I can't remember his name. Oh,
such bad fans.
Oh, my second beer.
We're so bad.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're so bad.
Man, it's driving me crazy. He had the roll punt, the rugby punt. Jeez.
Shane would know.
Do we have to edit this out?
I think so.
Yeah.
Or no, we don't. Just
leave it in. Sorry. Last year's punter. This is what sucks, man. Like doing this podcasting is a little harder than you think it is. If you're listening back and you hear us like blank things, blank words, like it's not as easy as it sounds it to be sometimes, at least for me. So listen, we could sit here and look at it online, but whatever. Let's just keep pressing on. But we're gonna have a solid punter, a solid kicking game. I'm not worried about it for 4 more years. Here's hoping till we only have 3 more punters and kickers in the 2020s.
You just gotta recruit those engineers and get them for 4 years.
That's right. That's right. They're guaranteed to stick around. Yeah, special teams look good.
Right.
The punt covers looked good. Kickoffs looked deep enough. Like I had nothing no bones to pick with this special team play in the scrimmage. All right, well, let's move on. And before we get to our overall thoughts on spring camp, spring football, and all this stuff, Montana State did release their depth chart, their post-spring depth chart, which who knows exactly what that means this early in the game. One thing, did you have a chance to listen to the Brent Vigen press conference today?
I did not. I did listen to one that was posted right after the scrimmage that involved like a couple of media members. Was that the same one?
No, I forwarded it to you, and I texted you.
Well, there you go. I was busy teaching.
It's all good, man.
I have a lot going on.
It's all good. There was one thing he did talk about is how much stuff is still up in flux. And one thing he actually said, which surprised me, and as we're talking about the depth chart here, is how the offensive line hierarchy is still up in the air, which is pretty interesting. You think it'd be pretty solidified. I don't know what he means by hierarchy exactly. Is he talking about like number 5, number 6, who's going to come in? You would think that you think the top 5 are set in stone. But so they did release the depth chart. I'm going to read it through real quick, at least the starters. I think that's kind of the thing people want to know, who won some position battles. You got Connor Wood, left tackle, Zach Red, left guard, Cole Sane, center, Taylor Tuiasosopo, right guard, and Lewis Kidd at right tackle. Tight end, you got Derek Snell. Wide receivers go Lance McCutcheon, Willie Patterson, and Jaden Smith. Quarterback, Matthew McKay, listed the starter at quarterback. You got Isaiah Afonso listed at running back. On defensive side of the ball, the D ends are Daniel Hardy and Amandre Williams, as we already talked about. Kyle Rigg and Chase Benson in the middle. You got Troy at will linebacker, Callahan O'Reilly at Mike, Tyrell Thomas at nickel, as we talked about, James Campbell and Eric Zambrano at the cornerback spot, and you got Ty Okada at strong safety, and Jeffrey Manning, the transfer from Oregon State, at free safety. So is there anything on that depth chart that surprised you or that you wanted to discuss?
James Campbell, cornerback. James has put in his dues on. He's been a special teams ace wide receiver the last 3 years, made a transition over to defense, and to see him starting as a cornerback, that's pretty cool, man. Good for James. I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, me too. Like he's just a guy who's stuck with the program. Like this is we talk so much about guys who could transfer, who things aren't working out for him. The guy just wants to be on the field as a Bobcat, right? You just get the sense like, just put me in, coach. I'll do whatever. That's the kind of guy you like to have on your team. He's worked his way into the starting spot at cornerback. I'm really excited for him to show his opportunity. He's got great size, 6'1", 180. That's a tall cornerback for the Big Sky Conference. He looked pretty good in the scrimmage. He's got some work to do there, but I think he's going to be a solid starter come fall camp, and I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, but the fastest guys at cornerback, I mean, that was kind of like what Bobby Houck did when he first came in and he was taking over Stitt's offense, had all these receivers. What are you going to do? Transfer them over to the defensive side of the ball, and here we go.
the Bob Stitt school of thought, like just recruit half your roster as wide receiver and figure it out later, as opposed to the Jeff Choate school of thought, just recruit a bunch of quarterbacks and figure out where to put them
and screw them all up,
screw everything up. See, we can take shots at Choate. See, it's not all a love fest over here. I forgot to mention fullback RJ Fitzgerald. I love that guy.
Yeah.
So his backup list listed as Quincy Kent Schneider. He actually looks really good in this scrimmage.
Yeah.
I actually had to look up like who's number 36, and I was like, I remember we talked about him last year about him moving from, he might have been an offensive lineman at one point. Pretty light kid, like listed at like 240 at the time. Like that's pretty. You're not gonna stay an offensive line at that, buddy. Sorry. He looked good, man. Like he caught one of Rovik's first passes, I think, in the flat, and looked good with the ball in his hands. I think he's a guy who can do some stuff. 6'2", 233 junior. I'm excited, man. Like we got a good fullback room. What year are we talking? What year is this? We're talking about being excited about fullbacks, but here we are. I love it. I love that we have fullbacks, and I love we got a mean kid like RJ Fitzgerald blocking for our stable of running backs.
You know what I like about RJ Fitzgerald is his photo in the roster. He's just wearing glasses. He looks like a studious young man that would kick your ass.
He could. 230
sure.
at 5'10", man. He's a little bowling ball. He's vicious. I love RJ Fitzgerald.
I love watching him block. It's awesome.
So I don't know where I was thinking Nate Stewart would get a start, but now I'm looking at the roster like who does he replace? I think Lance McCutcheon has earned his spot. I think he's going to have a good year. Willie Patterson, yeah. he can do it, man. He can. So maybe this is Willie Patterson's year where he finally lives up to the hype. Jaden Smith, Nate Stewart's not replacing him, so I don't know. It's a solid group, man. If we got some guys who can come in, and if Willie Patterson can't get it done, we got Coy Steele right there back there waiting. So I think it's going to be a solid group of wide receivers, and I guess there's no real big surprises from that room. The last thing I do want to talk about on the depth chart, though, is what do you think about Taden Gilman being listed at the backup in the nickel spot?
I have no clue about that. That was a shocker to me. I almost thought that was like a misprint.
Right? Is Gilman that quick? Are they going to use him in like obvious run situations? More of a when Brandon Conkle moved down to that nickel spot, kind of that safety linebacker hybrid spot where he's not going to be asked to cover as much. I think Gilman is pretty quick for a linebacker, for a guy. He's only at 209, which is, I guess, is pretty light for a linebacker. So maybe that's a good spot for him to be. More of a, not quite as fast as a safety, but not big enough to play linebacker. Well, now you're a big nickel.
Something to keep your eye on for sure.
Yeah, I think he's got some skills, and I think he's going to be a good player. So I'm excited to see him get some time too.
Right on, man.
All right, let's get out of the scrimmage talk. Let's put our final bow on the spring thing, huh?
Yeah. So let's move into two things we want or liked about this spring. I'll go first. How about that, Ryan? Because it was my idea. I do want to talk about two things you like. I wrote down 4 things I liked. So I'll pick 2 of them. And specifically, I think this is going to be about spring ball, but for that to kind of qualify, like really, what did we see? We saw the spring scrimmage. So I think these are two things I liked about spring ball, spring scrimmage. One of them is energy, Ryan. One thing I was really concerned about, probably overly concerned about when Jeff Choate left, was how's our energy going to be? When I watched the game on Saturday, that was one thing I was looking for. And you know what I saw? I saw good energy. I saw guys playing, celebrating, being hyped. It didn't feel like we lost Jeff Choate in that. So I was pretty stoked about that, because to me, when I see that, one, you just want your players to have fun, right? But two, you don't want to lose that edge. And I thought that's what the Jeff Choate culture was, just like a mental edge. And whether that's celebrating, whether that's just being hyped, I don't know what you want to call it. That was what Jeff Choate brought in spades. And so to be docile, the opposite of that would be just killer to me. Because that's what was our ace in the hole, was our energy in the last couple of years. Second thing I liked the release of the depth chart. I don't remember that with Jeff Choate. And here's why I like it. I like it because it tells you where you're at. And there can be some sting in that. Like if you're Sal Aguilar, the junior, and you're not listed on the 2 deep, you're like, man, what am I doing? Or Demarius Hosey, you're now the third running back, presumably, maybe the fourth. Who knows? What is that going to do to you? Is it going to light a fire? Is it going to make you bust your ass all summer long to get to that 2 deep, to get to the number one, to get some playing time? Or are you going to quit? Are you going to go to the transfer portal? And I think right now, I think you're going to see both. And you know what? I hope for the first. I want the players who are just going to light a fire on them and be like, you know what? Work starts right now. I'm number 3. I'm number 4. I'm not going to be come fall, because I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to prove myself. I like the depth chart. I like having a hierarchy. I like having, as a professional, I like knowing where I am. As my boss comes and observes me and gives me feedback, gives me evaluations. I think kids these days need to have evaluations as well. They need to be told, hey, this is where you're at. This is where you can improve. And I want to see how they react to that. So I like that, and I like our energy.
Vigen did talk about that a bit in the press conference today about why he released it, and it was a good little chat just about guys need to know where they are, and it's kind of what you're alluding to. And there might be certain situations where he wouldn't do it, but since it's like a new thing, and he kind of was also talking about I kind of do it for Bobcat fans and media and stuff, because you guys kind of deserve to know too. So it was an interesting little piece, but that's a good. I like your two; those are good. My first one would be just the obvious continued commitment to the run game. I think that became apparent throughout spring. You never know. A new coach says he's going to do it. Then in practice, does it actually happen? I think it looks like he wants to run the ball from what I saw in the scrimmage, from everything I've heard. So that makes me excited that we're going to continue to run the ball. That's an easy one for me. The other one would be quarterback development. Might actually happen. We have long documented Jeff Choate's struggles to develop quarterbacks, to stick with the quarterback, to start this guy game 1, and actually by game 10, he's actually a better quarterback than he was in game 1. That hasn't really happened under Jeff Choate. So I'm really excited to just see where that progresses. But from the brief things I saw in the scrimmage, I could see already the Vigen's influence on the passing game and the confidence level of the quarterbacks. It just seemed like something I haven't seen in Jeff Choate, in the Jeff Choate era yet. So that was exciting for me. So the two things I liked the most were both offensive, actually, which I'm excited to see how the offensive progresses.
Those are two great things. Yeah, I would agree with you on the quarterbacks for sure. All right, Thorny. Well, it's time for our Golden Coolie questions. The first one comes from Big Bruce Baker. Does the blood alcohol content really impact recruiting? I think he meant to say the BAC right there.
He did say BAC. We're interpreting how we feel. Because our BACs are getting up there, I think.
Will we have more of an advantage over the Big Sky Conference? Big Bruce Baker, of course it is, man. I mean, I think that's the carrot that's keeping a lot of our recruits here right now. I actually don't know that, to be honest with you. But yes, the BAC is going to be a game changer in recruiting, and Montana State's already killing recruiting. So this is just going to impact it on a bigger level for sure.
One thing that I did not know until recently is there's going to be like an in-house like doctor or, a staff, like a medical staff. I mean, that's something you sell to the parents of recruits, right? We're going to keep your kids safe. If he gets hurt on the field, we got all this state-of-the-art hydrotherapy, whatever. We heat up the ice. What's that reference from? We got all this fancy stuff that's going to make players feel safe, make parents feel safe. Do you know the reference?
Is that Rookie of the Year?
That is Rookie of the Year. Nice. We heat up the ice. Anyway, yeah. I think
the both worlds.
It's the best of both worlds. That's right. I'm so glad you got that. Daniel Stern. Love that guy. Anyway, I think absolutely. Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge game changer for us, man. I'm excited for it, and I don't see how it. I mean, in the arms race, even in the Big Sky Conference, it trickled all the way down to the Big Sky. So I think it's absolutely a game changer.
He has a second question. Does Vigen and staff recruit a different player than Choate? Choate always talked about length and athlete. Does Vigen want something else? I don't know.
Too early to tell. He hasn't even recruited anybody. Like all the recruits that were already signed were all Choate recruits, right? Because Vigen came in after the February signing period. So I don't know the answer to that. You could maybe take a look at the depth chart and kind of figure out what he's looking for. But I couldn't glean enough off of that to know exactly what he's looking for. So to be determined on that one.
But if you look at his question, Choate always liked length, athlete, and size. I'm pretty sure that's what every football coach is looking for. So,
well, maybe Vigen doesn't want everyone to be an ex-quarterback. So maybe that's the difference.
Okay, fair enough.
Hard to say. Good question.
Touché.
I don't know the answer yet.
All right, you read the next one from Blue and Gold Blitz.
If McKay keeps the starting QB job to the season, which does he end the season as the starting quarterback? So basically, if McKay starts game one, is he starting at the end? I think if McKay starts the season, I think he absolutely probably will keep the job the entire season. I think Vigen's more of a guy who's going to give a little bit longer leash on the quarterbacks than maybe Jeff Choate would. I think if Vigen or McKay comes in there and throws an interception or two, I don't think he's gonna get yanked right out of the game. I do think that McKay, if he is named the starter, game one against Wyoming, will be the starter throughout the season. How about you, Foley?
When I first read this question, the thought that came to my mind right away was don't count out Rovig, because we've been trying to count him out, or people have been trying to count him out for so long. So I don't know. I still think it's going to be Rovig when all the dust settles.
I think if you went back and looked at Brent Vigen's track record, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine he hasn't played two quarterbacks in the season all that much.
That's a good point.
So I imagine he's going to stick with whoever he names a starter for game one.
You know, if Jeff Choate would have done that with Rovig, it would have been just so different.
I don't want to go down the Jeff Choate quarterback rabbit hole anymore.
Okay.
I'm happy to not have to talk about that. I feel like we were forced to talk about quarterbacks all the time in the bad way. So
Troy Anderson.
Oh man, that's a reference to an old episode where I whispered that. All right. He also asked, name a breakout player on offense and defense. Fully. Do you want to start there?
Defense, Danny Yu or Tayakata, but Tayakata's kind of been a breakout, but one of those two. Offense, I think it's going to be Jaden Smith or Elijah Elliott.
Is it lame to say Troy Anderson on defense? Because he hasn't really played a full season on defense, specifically on defense where he's focused on defense. So in that way, I think a breakout, but I'll give a more traditional answer. I think it's going to be Daniel Hardy. I think he's gonna
Good
be a
one.
great player. I think he showed flashes last year. It's his time to shine this year. He's gonna be the dude. I think he's gonna have a great year. Offensively, I would also have to pick Jaden Smith because there's so many established returning guys on offense. And maybe Matt McKay would be the other choice because, I mean, if he's the one who ends up being the quarterback, obviously he's going to be a breakout player because he hasn't played. But I think Jaden Smith's going to be a guy who's really going to turn heads. So
Lance McCutcheon, he could actually fulfill his role, his destiny.
I mean, you could pick wide receivers because they're going to get so many more opportunities. So I think that's an easy pick. Even like Derek Snell, I think could be a guy who could break out just from catching some passes himself.
What about Cole Sane, new center?
Yeah, I mean, people don't typically pick offensive linemen and when you talk about this kind of stuff, but he absolutely could be. I think he looked very good in this scrimmage.
All right. Good question.
He also asks, who do you think transfers out now that spring ball is over and the depth chart is out?
I think some juniors. Well, go back and do yourself a favor. Go back and look at the junior class. There's some guys buried in there that have been buried for so long that they're not going to see a lot of playing time. So I'm not going to go through them because I'm not going to go back on the web right now. But I was looking at that earlier on, and that was just something that kind of jumped out to me.
You just the first thing you look at is there in the positions where there's log jams. Quarterback seems like an obvious one to me, especially since quarterbacks just like to be the dudes more than maybe other positions. I don't know who. I wouldn't know if it's Blake, if it's Tommy, if it's Rovig or even Bauman. I think Bauman kind of is a guy who could be a program guy, but I would say quarterback room probably is your highest bet. Maybe in the running back room as well. There's just 10 dudes when you take in like all the freshmen.
All right. Well,
thanks for the question, man.
Oh, no. We do have one more question from...
We have 2 more questions.
Oh, my gosh.
We're moving along. We're doing okay.
Yeah. So this one is from Bobcat Nation. ND0479 says, playing off this, and this is off of the Big Bruce Bakers, playing off this, does the new staff members have a learning curve when it comes to recruiting, given that they're mostly recently recruiting at the FBS level?
I would say yes, only because the FBS does not offer partial scholarships. So I think actually learning how to do the math on that and figure out how to give guys partial that maybe you could win over with the partial versus a walk-on offer. I think there's some learning curve in that. I think the way that Jeff Choate kind of recruited was more of an FBS model to begin with. So, it's hard to say. I think there will be some learning curve, but I don't think it's going to be that great in reality. I think it's going to be more just scholarship allocation than anything.
I don't really have a thought on this one, so I'm just going to go with what you said, Ryan.
Sweet. I am the smartest. That's how I'm going to read that statement. All right. So the elephant in the room, Twitter. Montana Parlay asked us, I don't have a question up in front of me, but he basically asked us, was the spring season legitimate? What do you think there, Bully?
No, it wasn't. We've talked about this. I feel like this was on an episode before.
We talked about it before, I think, the season kicked off. And now that we've kind of seen the dust settle, I think, and I put the poll out there because I wanted the Bobcat Nation pulse on this question specifically. And I'm pulling it up right now. That's why I'm kind of talking slow and totally delaying what I'm going to get to. So 50 votes. 47 of them said MSU made the right decision opting out of the spring season. So I guess that's not entirely the same question, legitimate, but the fact that everyone's happy that the Bobcats opted out would infer that the season isn't necessarily legitimate. I guess that's conflating two things. So I haven't been that big a critic as some other people about the spring season. I think it is legitimate in the fact that teams went at it. The NCAA sponsoring a championship. If you went in there with the full intention, like most of the good teams went in there with the intention of playing all the way through and winning the national championship, I think it needs a big old fat asterisk on it. So, but overall, I don't know, man. I don't want to put an answer on it. I would say not necessarily that legitimate in the grand scheme of things because there's just too many good teams missing and too many teams opting out in the middle of the season. There was too much weird stuff going on.
Everything you said is exactly correct. The fact that Montana and Montana State were not playing in the Big Sky, it's not legit.
And you'll see lots of people tearing that down, like only those teams haven't won the championship, blah, blah, blah. Both these teams were in like top 6 last year. You can't, if you had this exercise in the FBS so they played in 2019 and it was pretty successful, I would say. But if you took in 2018, in the final polls from the 2018 season, if you took out like the number 4, 6, 7, and 9 teams, how would you feel about the FBS season? I don't know who those teams were, and I was actually thinking about researching this beforehand, but that's what happened in FCS. Like 3 or 4 of the top 10 final poll teams from 2019 did not play. So how is that like a full-on legitimate season when you have that many national championship contending teams opting out? I don't know. I'm not as harsh on it, but I also at the same time, it's not a full regular season. It's worth noting. It's worth talking about the fact that it wasn't fully legitimate in the way that it would be in any other fall year.
No, it's not fall football. It wasn't 100% participation. It's not a full schedule. However you want to like try to explain it, it's not legit. I mean, there's a national championship. Cool. But like you said, it's going to be with a fat asterisk. Not legit.
So you agree that MSU made the right decision opting out?
Yes, 100%.
94% of Bobcat Nation agrees that MSU made the right decision.
You're the smart ones.
I think it's in particularly a good decision for MSU because of the new coaching staff. But real quick aside, did you like what the Grizz did?
I loved what the Grizz did.
Right? Yeah, me too.
I was jealous, but I understood. We have a new coaching staff. Had Chope been here, he had talked about doing the exact same thing. I wish Montana State could have done the same thing, but I get it. But yes, I love what the Grizz did this year.
I am all for like scheduling 1, 2 at most scrimmages against other teams that count for nothing. I think it's kind of bogus that the stats from the Grizzlies playing D2 squad count for the record books. That's kind of BS, but I love the fact that they got to play those games and they counted for nothing record wise. Right. So I think that's really cool. And when I mean record wise, I mean like they didn't count for like conference championship record. Anyway, I think it's cool, and I would love to see that kind of stuff happen in the future. But yeah, overall, I'm totally jealous of what the Grizz did. I think that's the way to go. But new coaching staff, you don't want to put any cards out there. You also don't want to bring in a D2 team in Brent Vigen's first game and then somehow lose that game in a meaningless spring game, and that's a real bad mojo moving forward. So I think the Cats did exactly what was right for the Cats.
Maybe next year,
which is 4 months away until we get some real football again, roughly, give or take.
So Thorny, I'm going to let you have the honor of picking the winner of the Golden Coolie.
The question that I probably liked the most, we've debated the legitimate spring season to absolute death, not on the podcast, so I'm not picking Montana Parlay. Sorry, buddy. You were real quick with that answer on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure you did it just because you wanted to just light a match on the gasoline fire and walk away. So I'm not picking you. I would say probably Big Bruce Baker, huh? Baker. Big Bruce Baker. That's too many B's. What do you think, though? Right?
A triple B. All right. Woo!
Yeah. Good job. He might already had one, but
yeah, he probably does. Like most of these people are getting like double coolies right now, which is fine by me.
You should sign this one.
We'll send you them.
That'll make it different if it's signed by Foley.
I'll do it.
You know what we need to do? We need to send like all the people we've interviewed, send them like 10 coolies, have them sign them, and then pay have them shipped back, and then we can send out signed coolies by ex players. I'm actually pretty smart. Remember how I said I was the smartest? That's anyway. Good job. We'll get you a second coolie, third coolie, however many you have already. I think that's a worthy question, the one that I enjoyed discussing the most.
Excellent. Nice job, Big Bruce. All right, Thorny, we're going to put this thing to bed with some buy or sell. All right?
Let's do it.
All right, buddy. Buy or sell, Thorny. I feel more confident in MSU football now than I did in February.
Buy, I guess. That was a hard one for me. I felt pretty good in February, and I feel pretty good now. But overall, yeah, I'd say I feel a little better. I'll buy it.
Okay. Buy or sell. MSU is a top 3 team in the Big Sky right now.
Buying that after watching the spring. That's a one thing I didn't talk about is the spring. You got to see what everyone else kind of has. Basically, what they're doing now is what they're going to do in fall, and nothing overly impressed me. So absolutely, I'd say MSU's a top 3 team.
Where's your ranking right now?
3.
Behind?
Oh man, I would say, man, see, this is getting real into it. I'd say the Grizz and Weber.
I'd put us ahead of Weber. I'd put us at number 2.
I didn't love what I saw, but I'm still not confident that we could be more physical than them in the current moment. But yeah, I'd say right around Weber. Yeah, you could flip them pretty easy with Weber. I was not super impressed with Weber.
All right. Buy or sell, I'm happy so far with Coach Vigen.
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy it. There's nothing he's done has given me any doubt. And I know you feel a little bit different about that, but I'm happy enough with Vigen. I don't see any concerns. If anything, I see optimism in certain areas that Choate lacked, that the team lacked.
The next 2 are not necessarily Bobcat related, so
good.
Prepare yourself. Buy or sell, I'm a fan of NASCAR.
Sell it. I will sell that all day long. Racing and turning left all day long. No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Last one, Thorny.
We're fading hard.
Yeah, we're fading. Buy or sell, I have watched or listened to a baseball game this season.
Sell. Well, yeah, sell. I haven't watched a single second of baseball.
Okay. You're off the hot seat, my friend.
Woo.
Time for Ryan. All right. Buy or sell, I feel more confident in MSU football now than I did in February. The scrimmage did a lot for me, I got to admit. So, yes, I'm going to buy that. So, I was happy what I saw with this scrimmage. I'm okay with that. Number 3, MSU is a top 3 team in the Big Sky right now. I talked about that. I think we're number 2. I think the Grizzlies are number 1. I think the Grizzlies are stacked right now.
Unfortunately,
the
I
biggest
agree.
Question is quarterback, but they might have a Bozeman kid in Camden Brown's brother. What's his name?
Chris Brown.
Is it Camden Brown?
I think it's Chris Brown. I think it's Chris
Brown. Yeah. Yeah. So I hear might be the next coming. Anyways.
So you're buying that the Grizz made a statement?
They played a Division II team, and they played a team who hadn't been able to train since they didn't train at all since January to March because of COVID. So whatever. But they do have they got the leftovers from the Sammy and Kims that were on the Stitt regime. So they got some pretty good players right now. I'll give them that.
Honestly, if I hadn't seen the Grizz play, just the fact that I saw what the rest of the Big Sky has to offer would alone put me the Grizz probably better than all that.
And my favorite person to hate, Bobby Houck, has him playing pretty hard. So there you go.
Bob Houck.
That guy's never going to retire, is he? He's going to be coaching there for 20 more years. I guarantee it.
And then he'll pass it to his son.
Yep. There it is. All right. Number 4, I am buy or sell. I'm happy with Coach Vigen right now. Or I'm happy so far with Coach Vigen. Ryan, 2 weeks ago, you knew my answer. Today, I'm going to say yes. I am happy with Coach Vigen right now. I've had a real tough time letting Jeff Choate go. It's been like a legit breakup for me. And Coach Vigen's not Coach Choate.
Nobody's Coach Choate. That's the thing.
And Coach Cho has his flaws, and I don't know. I don't want to go down this because we talked about this when Coach Cho was fired, but I'm still having trouble with it.
You mean Coach Cho took a brand new job and somewhere else? You said he got fired.
That's a good point. It makes it easier in my mind to think about it.
Yeah, he was fired. Whatever helps you get over it.
Jeez. Yeah. Anyways. Okay. But yeah, I think Coach Vigen's doing a fine job right now. Again, the scrimmage helped me out with that. Number 5, I'm a fan of NASCAR. Believe it or not, I am. I was. Not as much anymore, but I was. My father grew up watching NASCAR. I hated it. But my very first years of teaching, I was I had no cable. I had no internet. This was before smartphones. But I had bunny ears on I bought a smart TV. And I didn't even have a smart TV. It was when they came out with high definition TVs. You know what I got? I got Fox. Fox shows NASCAR races on Sundays. I became a fan of Dale Jr. I used to watch NASCAR, and you know what? What I found was NASCAR was way more interesting than I ever thought it was. When you actually get into it, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of strategy in it.
Yeah.
And there's villains that you make up in your mind, kind of like AKA Bobby Houck. But yeah, I became a fan of Dale Jr. and I didn't like Kyle Busch and all this. So I watched it for a while, but kind of fallen out. But I could get back into NASCAR. All right. There's some Southern blood in me. And last question before we get out. Last thing. Woo, we're there. Barcel, I've watched or listened to baseball game this season. It's easy buy for me.
Easy buy
every day. Yeah, pretty much every day I watch or listen to a part of a game. Or I play fantasy baseball. I'm a huge Reds fan. Sorry, Bill. I'm not a fan of the Kansas City Royals or the Minnesota Twins. Go Reds.
Go Orioles.
There you go.
Cal Ripken still plays there, right?
Crap on the Cardinals. I don't like the Cardinals or the Cubs.
All right, man. Well, that was a marathon.
Yeah, my batteries are running low on my computer. It's going to close me out here. So let's get this thing going.
We'll see what the final time ends up on this. Man, I was inspired. It was just flowing, man. I was talking. I know you were shaking your head at me sometimes, but it was fun. So let's just get out of here, man. I want to thank Jeremiah Johnson for being our sponsor. I want to thank everyone for listening, man. We just appreciate it. This has been such a fun ride for us, and I really appreciate everyone who listens to our show and gives us feedback and, interacts with us. We love it. Give us a follow on Twitter, RRCatCast. Like, review, rate the podcast, all that fun stuff on your various podcast platforms. Visit us on rrcatcast.com. And you know what, Foley? Let's just get out of here with an enthusiastic Go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.
All right. I got places to be.